Assalamualaikum Pak Anies. As what you mentioned before, the Malay language is similar to Indonesian language. So I think without a translator we can understand each other. So can I proceed my question with bahasa?
There is non-Malay in attendance here.
So with English then.
Pak Anies asked you to ask the question in English then, to the benefit of the other audience.
Okay. So I would like to ask regarding the language of Malay. What is your opinion if this language became the official language of ASEAN beside English? Because I think this language is spoken in Malaysia, southern Thailand, and some part of Indonesia. So what do you think if this language became the official language of ASEAN? Thank you.
Namanya apa?
Azam Kasubah.
Azam.
Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, allow me to honor to have His Excellency Dr. ANIES BASWEDAN, former Minister of Education and Culture and former Governor of Jakarta 2017-2022, to deliver the ISTEC World Professorial Lecture number 25. Indeed, his presence in this educational and academic institute demonstrates how our university and ISTEC aspire to bring together leaders, scholars, academicians, and civil society players to intellectually and scholarly debate the issues and challenges confronting the Islamic world and the world at large. I would like to share my experience when meeting Dr. ANIES in Jakarta when I want to deliver the invitation from ISTEC. When I delivered the letter to Dr. ANIES BASWEDAN at his office, normally leaders will take the letter and put on the table, normally. But this is different with Dr. ANIES BASWEDAN. When I handed the letter to him, he immediately opened the envelope and he read through within seconds. Within seconds he responded, I like this topic. I like this topic. That is Dr. ANIES BASWEDAN. And he said, this is timely. We need to discuss about the Islamic perspective into SDG that we are talking about. And so I was very pleased. Despite his busy schedule, he managed to squeeze his time and be in Kuala Lumpur and in ISTEC today. Before I end my short remarks, I just would like to share. This is my third time with Dr. ANIES since his arrival. I just want to share with you the person by the name of Dr. ANIES, and I want to take a verse, an ayat written by Imam Abdul Rahman Ad-Dibai. If you read Maulud Ad-Dibai, there's one chapter describing about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I just want to take an ayah here to select this ayah, but it will not be, this is describing the Prophet, the character, the traits of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what I want to register to you all here, there's a resemblance. If I pick this ayat, the ayat says, وَإِذَا تَبَسَّمَ مِنْ habli an mithli habbil ghamam. Wa idza tabassama an mithli habbil ghamam. You want to know the description, the ayah, the meaning? I give you in Malay. Apabila beliau tersenyum, senyumnya sejuk, butiran embun. Dan bila beliau berbicara, seakan mutiara berjatuhan dari ucapan. Inilah the impression that I gathered of who Dr. ANIES BASWEDAN is. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have him here to learn his thought and wisdom. In today's lecture, Dr. ANIES will speak to you about the Malay world civilization's future and its contribution to global discourse on sustainable development. With honor and privilege, Dr. ANIES, the floor is yours.
Terima kasih Dr. Ahmad Al-Muhammadi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya wal mursalin Sayyidina wa habibina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajmain. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Raditu billahi rabba wa bil islami dina wa bil muhammadin nabiyya wa rasulah. Rabbi zidni ilma warzuqni fahma. Amin. Amma ba'du. Yang berbahagia Datuk Sri Syed Hussein Al-Habsi, Board of Governor of IIUM, which has just delivered a very moving remark that touches all of us. You always speaks from your heart, not only from your mind. May His blessing be upon you always, insyaAllah. Amin. Yang berusaha, Profesor Dr. Amir Akramin, Deputy Director of IUM, Excellencies, Ambassadors, Representative from Diplomatic Corps, also the Dean of IIUM, Professor Abdul Aziz Bergaud, distinguished professors, distinguished guests, deans, students, ladies and gentlemen, attending physically or virtually, all of you. Allow me to begin by expressing my true appreciations for the invite. When I received the invitations 2 months back, it was indeed an honor, privilege. The International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilizations is an institute that I value highly since I was just a student. It is the place that, my mentors, my professors talk about it. And books that was published from ISTAC is books that we've been reading all along. And when I did my graduate studies in the US, I had also the opportunity to interact closer with, later on, rector of IIU, which is Professor Kamal Hassan. I was just a student, he was a visiting professor, but whenever there is scholars coming into town, he made a gathering, and all of us, these young graduate students who try to connect and learn, has always been invited. So we come to his place and listening to all these leading scholars from all over the world, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from Afghanistan, from Egypt, from North Africa, people coming into his place and have these conversations, and we all just learn over there. So the name of ISTAC, IIUM, is names that is so close to my heart. And finally, I had the opportunity to physically present in this prestigious place. So I'm humbly honored with the opportunity. And inshallah, the institution continue to be the jewel from the East, as has been said earlier. And we all realize that Islamic civilization, so the Ummah, a stretch from the very western part of Maghribi all the way to the Nusantara in the very eastern part. It is a civilization that have gone through centuries of ups and downs, many lessons learned from our history, and many lessons to see how we embark to the future and how we contribute to the world civilization. So, you know, as I prepare remarks, it become too serious. I'll read some of my notes here, but I also like to share some of the notes that, you know, it was inspired by remark of our dean, Professor Abdul Aziz, the spirit of Bandung after the 1955 Asia-Africa conference. What I like to share here is, and I put that on some of our notes, is our ability in Southeast Asia, the people of Malay, to form gotong royong, to form cooperations, and to know limits of differences. And this is something unique of our land. And if I share some of our experience in Indonesia, when a nation as diverse as Indonesia, this is about more than 400 ethnic groups, more than 700 spoken languages, and we came to conclusions that we need to become one nation, and to create the feeling of unity, we have to have one common language. And the common language that was adopted was Melayu, Bahasa Melayu that was adopted. And if you are talking about numbers of Melayu speaker, it is not the majority. The majority of speakers in terms of ethnic groups is Japanese. But the Japanese did not push for his, quote, their language to be the national language of Indonesia. And the meeting was in 1928, 17 years before independence. And we didn't even foresee that independence is coming. It's still far away. We need to come up with the uniting variables, and that uniting variables was language. And they adopted Malay, because the Bahasa Melayu give the feeling of equality, give a sense of togetherness. When you adopt a different language, there is strata in that languages. And it was a decisions that we are so grateful until today. With that, we're able to create the feeling of unity. But not less important is we are also create a feeling of unity with everyone of Malay in this region, the region of Southeast Asia. So we come to Malaysia, we don't need translator. You come to Indonesia, you don't need translators. And even at times of trying, when we are experiencing tensions, and sometimes tensions started from polarizations, friction, conflict, and trying to solve that tensions, groups come together, have negotiations, even if it is a very rough conflict, you don't need translator in the table. You can speak freely, frankly to one another because you have one common language. But it started with the willingness to accept higher purpose, common purpose above our minor micro interest or purpose. And that was of unique in Southeast Asia. So, allow me with that as an introduction to go into some of our notes that, in the Malay saying, di mana bumi dipijak, di situ langit dijunjung, which remind us that wherever we stand on this earth, we uphold the sky together. This saying sort of captures the essence of the bonds we share, bonds that stretch back centuries, woven through our tales of maritime adventures, shared literature, cultural exchanges, and mutual reflex. It is a reflection not only of our shared roots, but also our shared responsibility. And as you see, the stories of Indonesia, Malaysia, and our Malay brothers and sisters across Southeast Asia are not the separate chapters in a book. They are a thread of tapestry, each one vital, each one telling a story of resilience, innovations, and unity. And that's precisely why we are here today. Not just to reflect upon the vibrant hues of our past, but to envision the patterns that we will weave into this tapestry in the coming years. And therefore, our gathering in this esteemed institute is a testament to our collective recognitions that the future of the Malay civilizations is inextricably linked to the broader conversation of sustainable development and global progress. And what we are discussing today is not just about policies and theory. We are, in a sense, reflecting on a promise that we owe to our children and the children of our children, a promise of a world where they not only thrive, but also recognize and cherish the depth and richness of their heritage. And as we move forward, let us remember that our conversations, our actions, our visions will shape not only the futures of Malay, but also the very fabrics of global discourse. Now, allow me to share some historical context in our conversation today. That history isn't just a distant memory or words in a textbook. It is alive, it breathes, and it continues to shape our present and our futures. And the history of Malay civilization, rich and resplendent, is a testament of that truth. We all know that centuries ago, while many parts of the world were still finding their feet, the great Malay kingdoms were hubs of commerce and trade. Sailors and merchants from our lands ventured across vastness of Indian Oceans, of the South China Sea, connecting distant shores. However, we need to note here that our ancestors built network of relationship based on trust, not on conquest. And that is something of unique from us here in Southeast Asia. They barter goods, but yet more importantly, they exchange ideas, they exchange art, stories, and weaving the early threads of globalizations. And it is in the very southeast part of Asia. So, the annals of history speaks of our maritime prowess, but let's not forget the world of letters and thought. Our literature not only entertained, but imparted values, philosophies, and lessons for generations. The arts, from the intricate patterns of batik to the soulful rhythm of gamelan, they have captured imaginations, and they have told tales of love, heroism, and unity. And also, our system of governance. It is rooted in community, driven by consensus. And we understood the true power doesn't come from the ruling over people, but from empowering people. It comes from leading with them. This is the very essence of our leadership. That was not about dominance, but service. And that is why, if I may share, as I mentioned last night, we may be seeing impressive individual countries in other parts of Asia. Say, South Asia. You're seeing emerging India, neighbors of Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. And then you're seeing to the northeast, where Japan started 150 years ago. And then you have South Korea, Taiwan, China. This individual country impressed the world. However, we are not seeing the region being able to work together, because on the other hand, you have Southeast Asia, where all this country, Malay-dominated culture, we are able to form cooperations. We are able to form gotong royong. We are able to form togetherness. Why? Because the leadership was not about dominance. It is about building trust. It is about mutual respect. And we understand limits. Sometimes we have differences. However, in the past more than 50 years, this region has been peaceful among us. There were conflicts, but with foreign powers. Within us, basically, this has been a peaceful region. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this grand symphony of progress, it is not just our past that sings, but it's also our presence that harmonizes and promises acquires for the futures. The Malay world has always been bridged between civilizations, and today we're amping up our efforts to be beacon for the world in sustainable development. This is something that I also mentioned during our first encounter in Indonesia, in Jakarta a few months ago, that our challenge within the Ummah is to shift our attention to, from focusing how we tackle the challenge of Ummah into how we provide solutions to humankind, how the Ummah contribute to humankind and the challenge of humanity today. And one of the biggest challenges, as we all know, is about sustainability. We have been living in the world and it's been dominated by paradigm values that often lead us to imbalances, lead us to inequilibrium. And this is something that we need to step in. We need to contribute solutions to all of that. And if I also, let me see, I have a little bit of one slide to show, hopefully. Okay, there we go. This has been the dominant paradigm that we have been seeing in the past 2 to 3 centuries. Accumulation of wealth, profit maximizations, ecology as externalities, and economic growth as the forefront of our development. And this is the area in which we need to address, we need to tackle, and we need to move, and we need to go back to our roots, from accumulation of wealth into distribution of wealth, from profit maximizations to well-being oriented, from ecology as externalities to environment as essentials. from economic growth to harmony between ecology and economy. And this needs to be done by us, by showing examples, and we can go back to our roots in which we have the traditions of maintaining all of this. If I may share some of our experience. Indonesia, the Emerald of Archipelago, we still have quite a few environmental challenges. However, in just a few short years, we've also witnessed transformations. We have harnessed the power of the sun, the wind, the waves, and taking significant strides in the adoptions of renewable energy. We are also pushing for more sustainable public transportation within and between our urban areas. And Indonesia doesn't stand alone in these journeys. Our brothers and sisters in Malaysia have been making remarkable progress as a steward of Mother Earth. Of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, Malaysia has made immense positive achievements in the area of poverty reductions, quality education, clean energy provisions, and climate actions. You have shown that progress doesn't have to come at the expense of our planets. But this is not just a story of two nations. Across Southeast Asia, whether it's reforestation effort in Thailand or the sustainable fisheries in the Philippines, the movement in this region is growing. So our unity in ASEAN shouldn't just be political or economical, but it also has to be environmental and ethical. Through collaborations and partnership, we're setting benchmark. We're setting a method of sharing knowledge and building a future where prosperity of one doesn't mean the depletions of another. And ASEAN Sustainable Initiative remind us that when we pool our resources, we pool our knowledge, and we resolve seriously, there is no challenge that is too great for us. So let this achievement not be mere bullet points in a report, but let them be the story that we proudly share with our children as proof that their heritage is one of action, of care, of unwavering commitments to Earth and to each other. In our journey forward, we carry the songs of hope. We must also listen to the sobering notes of challenge. And these challenges are not mere hurdles to overcome. They're actually opportunities for us to reaffirm our commitments, our resilience, and our unity. The reality of climate change, and we now call it climate crisis, is undeniable. It is staring at us right in our face. Our shores bear witness to the rising sea levels, eroding the very lands of our ancestors, which were called home. And we have seen the fury of nature with extreme weather events, not just disturbing life, but reshaping the very landscape of our nations. All of us experience one of the biggest crises of humanity faced by humanity in the past 3 years when COVID hit us in 2020. I often feel that I had the opportunity with the blessing of Allah to be managing one of the largest city at times of the most trying of our modern period. We have 11 million populations, and when COVID arrived, the complexity was serious. And I think all cities were experiencing that. But 2 months before that, Jakarta experienced the worst rainfall in the history of our city. Our drainage system had a capacity of 50 millimeters of rain per day. On the 1st of January 2020, the rainfalls in Jakarta reached to the level of 378 millimeters in 7 hours. The capacity is 50 in 24 hours. The rain was 378 in 7 hours. It was the worst rainfall we ever experienced. That's why I often said, when people said the climate change, for us, it's a climate crisis. And that's where we are now witnessing. So, but we need to take a note. The challenges don't just stem from nature. As leaders, we grapple with economic dilemmas every day. How do we ensure that our growth is not just rapid, but right? That doesn't just fill our coffers but fills with the aspirations of every citizen, whether they live in the bustling streets of Kuala Lumpur or in the serene village of Central Java. We are at the crossroad in deciding about the path that balances growth with equity, with prosperity, with sustainability. And this is where our journey needs to take. We need to come back into our roots. So now, with regards to the future, I believe in the spirits of Malay world and the larger Southeast ASEAN community. Our history has shown us so many. It is us that we are able to face challenges head-on in the past, and we innovated, we adapt, but most importantly, we do everything together as one community, as one family. And ladies and gentlemen, as we stand here in this juncture, I'd like to outline 4 strategies that may be of interest to all of us embarking to the future. Number 1 is to embrace technology. We are on the cusp of revolutions, the 4th industrial revolutions. But it's essential to remember that this isn't about machine or code, it's about humanity. The rise of artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, the green technology present an unparalleled opportunities. Yes, we can harness them, not as masters, but as partners. Partners that can revolutionize agriculture, empower local businesses, protect our precious environment. It's not about replacing our essence with technology, but enhancing it and amplifying it to the world to witness. I often had conversation with our teachers and professors in our university and asked the simple questions. Can technology replace teachers? Can technology replace professors? When these questions were posed to teachers and professors, most likely we as professors, we as teachers would respond, no, because we are irreplaceable. We don't like to be replaced by technology, and we don't think technology can replace us. But if I reflect back on that questions, perhaps it was the wrong questions. The right question should be, what kind of teachers, what kind of professor is irreplaceable by technology? And what kind of professors and what kind of teachers that are replaceable by technology? Those who are teaching repetitively, using same materials over and over again, you can replace it with PowerPoint and video recording. But those that comes with inspirations, with moving messages, those individuals would never be replaced by technology, ever. So you look at this technology as partners, and for us here in these regions, we have the richness of our creative imaginations that can be translated into inspiring messages. Number two is with youth and educations. You know, when I look at the eyes of our youth, what I'm seeing is not only hope, but I'm seeing promise. They are the torchbearer of our legacy. They are the architects of our futures. And investing in them is not just a duty, but it is also an honor. By revamping our education system, we can cultivate minds that think critically, hearts that value sustainability, spirit that cherish regional comrades. And they are our future leaders, our future innovators, our future artists, our future custodians. So we need to equip them with wisdom of the past and the tools of the future. And we really need to show that with examples in our facility. How can we make sure that our facility is green, is sustainable, development oriented? Number three, on regional collaborations. Our strength has always been in our unity, and the ASEAN community is not just an association, it's a testament of our shared dreams and intertwined destinies. By intensifying our collaborations, we can spearhead research that redefine industries, innovate technology that charts new courses, and craft policy that sets global benchmark. If we do it as a united front, we can lead the discourse on sustainable development and show the world the power of collective ambitions, not only individual country, individual nations' ambitions. And the last point, for number four, is cultural diplomacy. In the great theater of the world, the Malay civilization has a unique stories to tell. Stories of resilience, stories of harmony, of dance between natures and culture. Our journey of sustainable progress, deeply rooted in our cultural values and heritage, they can be guiding lights for nations near and far. Through cultural diplomacy, we can share our lessons, our melodies, and our dreams, fostering global connections and mutual respect. In crafting these visions, let's remember it is not just about reaching destinations. It is about the journey. It is about the stories we're telling. It is about the bonds we will forge and legacy that we will leave behind. So for all of us, let's dream big, work hard, and march ahead, hand in hand, toward a brighter, greener, and united future. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
I found that in my studies as a genomist, partly in my work, that the Malay world populations are differentiated by human genomes, not only by cultures. Human genomics, DNA. So perhaps, do you have an idea of this development in Indonesia? Thank you very much.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi everyone. My name is Faza. I'm a business student from IUM. I would like to say that I'm very grateful for having this chance. And what I want to ask regarding, since we talk about the future, sir, regarding the discourse on the construction of Kra Canal, or in Thailand, the canal that will build in Thailand, how significant the impact on countries around Malacca Strait, such as Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. We are the maritime islands, and we are the maritime countries. And I would like to ask your suggestion for us, the younger generation. What should we do to anticipate this kind of changes? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, Prof? Yes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Ahmad Murad from ISTEC. I don't have a question, but I'd like to share a historical episode resonating from.
Prof, can you get closer to the mic?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to share a historical episode resonating from your lecture. You mentioned about the Bandung conference. You mentioned about the future. One of the figures that who has charted the future of Indonesia and this region, this rantau, is your grandfather, Abdurrahman BASWEDAN. You have inherited that discourse from him. Abdurrahman BASWEDAN was, just to share, a diplomat, a writer, statesman, an editor of a number of newspapers, including non-Arab newspapers. Incidentally, I'm doing some study on the Hadrami press in the Malay world. I've published an essay on the Hadrami press some months ago, and we'll be publishing a book co-written by two others from ISTEC on the Hadramis from the Indian Ocean perspective. I'd like to share this, what I've written. In 1934, and this is the future. Abdurrahman urged Arabs to integrate into Indonesian society and be part of national identity. He led the local-born Arabs to actively participate in the struggle for Indonesia's independence. He called on the Arab community to embrace the fundamentals of jus soli citizenship, and this way I want to quote, "Di mana saya lahir, disitulah tanah airku." The place of my birth is my homeland. Abdurrahman was a journalist, diplomat, statesman extraordinaire that would have to recognize in any discourse on nationalism and journalism in the Malay world. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I've been referring to Malay in terms of people of Melayu here in Southeast Asia. And it's in terms of a collective experience, culture, heritage of the Malay people that encompasses among them common identities, common arts and culture, and in a way, religion, which often referred as Islam in the religions of the Malay, as well as cuisines, food, taste, which often also reflect some flavor of Melayu, beside language, history, and heritage. So that's our variables that define, in our view, when I discuss about Melayu, how we define Melayu. Terima kasih.
The second question is also related to this, Malay. You are talking about the differentiation always made based on language or linguistic. But is there any other factors that maybe can be used, for example, the human genome or DNA?
On that, unfortunately, I don't have much to say. However, I view in our experience and observations, the factor of language has been instrumental in creating the feeling of equality and the feeling of togetherness and unity. I often look at the experience of Western Europe, in which they have been able to form from European Economic Community into European Community, a journey of no less than 50 years into creating one common community in Europe. However, to reach into the feeling of unity and equality, they have always find difficulties. And one of the reasons why is in EU, they have 23 official languages. So even though you are together in the same room, but everyone in that same room were wearing headsets with translators in the back of the conference room, be it parliament, be it conferences. And every document that was made has to be translated into these 23 common languages. You are also seeing the experience of South Asia in India, in which the parliaments allowed members to speak with local language, with Hindi or with English. And you can imagine complexity when competing representative coming from regions. Some speaks local language, some speak Hindi, some speak English. It can be politicized that you are less local and you are two nationals. But when we agreed upon that one common language, creating unity, creating togetherness has been much smoother. Thank you.
Yes. Question 3 actually from Faza, but I do not get exactly the question is all about. If I may invite Brother Faza again to ask the question to Dr. Adis, please.
Okay, it's related to the discourse that Thailand will build a canal. Yeah, and how should we? What is the suggestion for us, the younger generation, that will contribute in the future economy, global economy? And we are from the maritime countries, right? So,
if I may just share, I mean, you know, I didn't pay much attention on the plan of deploying the canal anyway. But as someone who is young like yourself, change is always coming. So be adaptive, and I'm pretty sure whatever change coming in, we will be able to overcome that. And that's the experience of people in Southeast Asia. So let's not too worried about that.
okay.
We will survive.
Thank you, sir.
Are you going to comment about the historical episode shared by Professor Murad?
Thank you, professors. Yes, indeed, when Abdurrahman BASWEDAN started this movement of integrating into the Malay community or Indonesian community at that time, and promote the principle of where you are born, that's your homeland. At that time, it was rather controversial. At that time, it was a huge challenge. And that was also the contributing factors why there's so many Hadramid descendants in Southeast Asia is playing major roles in our society, because they have been part of the fabrics of our society long before independence. They're part of the society. And there is one factor that we must not overlook. Many of the migrants were coming in to this region not as family, but as singles, and mostly males. The Arabs didn't travel with their wives. They leave their wives behind. They travel alone, and they arrive into this region and married the locals. And therefore, their uncles from the mother side is always locals. So when you called motherland, it is your motherland here, not father's land over there. And I think that's very different perspective. So when we call motherland, it is your mother, and your mother is always local. And that is something that is distinctive. I mean, if you look at migrants coming in from Europe, they come in as families, husband and wives, but from the Arab world, mostly were coming or traveling alone or male only. And I think that is why the unity or the feeling of togetherness created is much stronger. One is ideological, two is genetical. Thank you.
Now let us continue with the next round of question. I would like to invite from this side. Yes.
Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Mahfud Ipan Hussein. I'm a student of IAM University. So my question is, firstly, I'm really honored to attend to your session today. And interestingly, you did mention several times about gotong royong, or togetherness in the Southeast Asia, especially in Indonesia. So based on your leadership experience as the governor of the biggest city in Jakarta, in Indonesia, especially Jakarta, have you experienced to solve any horizontal conflicts, especially the conflicts regarding religions and politics? So what is your best suggestions and solutions to solve the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine right now? It's the first questions. The second question is, in your mind, what is the best things that an ideal nation and ideal people must do to achieve the sustainability and also wealth, as you mentioned before? Thank you.
The second question, would you repeat?
Okay. It's about sustainability and wealth. So what are the things that an ideal people and ideal nations must do to achieve sustainability and wealth? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let us proceed.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum Pak Anies. As what you mentioned before, the Malay language is similar to Indonesian language. So I think without a translator we can understand each other. So can I proceed my question with bahasa?
There is non-Malay in attendance here.
So with English then.
Pak Anies asked you to ask the question in English, then to the benefit of the other audience.
Okay. So I would like to ask regarding the language of Malay. What is your opinion if this language became the official language of ASEAN beside English? Because I think this language is spoken in Malaysia, southern Thailand, and some part of Indonesia. So what do you think if this language became the official language of ASEAN? Thank you.
Namanya apa?
Azam Kasubah.
Azam. Okay. Yes, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Safa Basyarahil, and I'm second year student from IIUM, and I'm from Indonesia. So I want to ask, maybe for some people...
Could you come closer to the mic?
Maybe for some people this is an easy question to answer, but for us as a student, maybe we need a very good and clear answer. If you say that by building trust, we can create a peaceful region. In line with the theme of our event, I would like to ask, how can we as students create similar trust in positive attempt or association that there we encounter various beliefs in action I seek your opinion. In your view, is it prevailable to establish an association with a singular path, but fewer members and just stop there, or continue to get people on our side, but even though it demands significant energy and a prolonged effort to build a more inclusive community with us?
So basically, it's about how to build trust.
Yes, but I asked for, is it prevailable to establish an association with a singular path, but fewer members and just stop there?
Yeah.
Or continue to get people on our side, but it hard and demands significant energy and a prolonged effort to build a more inclusive community with us. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's very clear. Okay, can we have next?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Wadita Surya Putri from Indonesia, and I just doing exchange student in IIUM.
Come closer a bit, sister.
So my question is about the sustainable development. I think sometimes the effort to develop the economic value work clash with the interest within the society. And you said before earlier that one of our roots is environmental is essential. And my question is, what is the best way to create harmonization between environment and economy issue based on your experience? Based on your experience as a governor of Jakarta. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, can we have last?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Shahbuddin Mun. I'm a political analyst, and at the same time, I'm the chairman of the Political Bureau and Leadership Bureau of Majlis Perundingan Melayu Malaysia. It's a Malay Consultative Council of Malaysia. So, in fact, when I'm a political analyst, I engage to your Excellency videos all the way before I sleep, because after all, His Excellency is fighting for a very important position in Indonesia. So I know that you are very popular with the youth in Indonesia. So now I have seen right in front of me. So you are my idol too. Yeah, most of your thinking has gone into my writing style. So what I'm going to say today, assuming His Excellency, you win this coming presidential election in Indonesia, so this is a time, I believe, from my own personal research, that a leader like you, the leader who have the Islamic, more or less, portray that what happened to this country, the Islamist party passed, is more or less come to the majority supported by our Malaysia and Indonesia. I believe the same trend will be in your favor, inshallah. So means I've seen your short lecture with a very wide topic of Malay civilization, all that. And I more wanted to know what happened is the God will, you become the president of Indonesia, and our beloved Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, who is my idol too. And I think both of you has got certain chemistry here. What is what sort of cooperation now, you know, there are a lot of economics, all that. What is the future? You're talking about AI and all various cooperation and relationship. So this is what I would like to explore. Thank you, His Excellency.
Thank you very much. Before we go to that, let's allow the Dr. Anis to answer first the question. I think, Dr. Anis, are you going to be interested to answer the last question first before we go up
I'll do the last.
Okay.
So help me to reiterate some of these questions.
Yeah, the last question, right?
No, the previous.
The first question, okay. The first question is related to the culture of gotong royong that you mentioned in your lecture just now. Okay, we stop for a while. Then comment first and then we...
Let me comment to some of these important questions. First, with regard to gotong royong, have you experienced the method of using gotong royong in solving problems? Yes. Alhamdulillah, gotong royong is our roots in Southeast Asia, and the modern terms is collaboration, the work together, and we actually declared Jakarta as a city of collaborations. And when we solved problems of our traffic, Jakarta was famous for being heavy traffic congestions. When I stepped into office, Jakarta was ranked 4th most congested city in the world. Not bad. When you're number 4, I mean, what can you expect? I mean, you're number 4 in the world. So you step into the office, and so our idea was to transform our citizens from taking private vehicles into public transport. But we have more than 25 operators of public transport across the city. So I invited them for a meeting, all these operators, and I share with them the idea of gotong royong. Let's solve this problem together. We will shift the way we manage public transport. In the past, the public were using public transport, then they have transaction. So you pay to the microbuses, and the microbuses will give you services. And we told them we're going to change this. The public is paying to us. You can take public transport for 3 hours at no additional cost, and you can move any public transport with single tickets. And then we pay these operators based on kilometers. So they don't have to rely on how many passengers in their microbuses, because we will pay them based on kilometers, not based on numbers of passengers. So they don't have to wait in a certain corner of the street waiting for passengers. They just have to circle the routes. So we changed the equations. We talked to everyone. At first, it was one of the most difficult meetings we had. The most heated meeting I ever experienced, actually, when I meet with all these operators. And they were saying, the government is never fair. You are operators and you are regulators, and you have conflict of interest, and we have all these, sharp words to us. And I was new governor, so they were talking about government in general. So we shared our plan, talked with them. Meetings took place more than 70 times to reach agreement on the rates. It is a long process. It is a collaborative process, but at the end, we reach agreement, we move forward, and then we are able to double coverage of public transport in Jakarta from 42% of area of Jakarta into 87% in 4 years. And we tripled ridership from 350,000 passengers per day into 1 million passengers per day. Why? Because all these operators were integrated into a gotong royong system together. So Jakarta ranked number 4 most congested city. The following year, we dropped to number 7. The following year, we dropped to number 10. Okay? But we're still on the top 10. You want to be on the top 10, but not on traffic congestions. You want to be in the top 10 for something else. But in the 3rd year, we dropped to number 34. And then we dropped to number... And that's not the end of the story. When we dropped to number 46 in the following years. So imagine, from the 4th most congested city into number 46. We are much better than Tokyo actually now. Yeah. And how that is done, it's not by us giving instruction. It's by suro. It's by gotong royong. It's by collaboration. Is the process speediest? No. More than 70 meetings. Can you imagine? 70 meetings, intensive meetings, sometimes heated. However, those are in a private conversations. All these differences until we reach agreement. And once we reach agreement, then we move forward. So we had that experience. And with regard to religious affair, the same thing. Sometimes we have issues of permits to build churches. Sometimes we have issues of permits to build mosques in Jakarta. And when you face that challenge, you don't go out to public and announce. You invite all related party, sit down together and share what is your thought, what should be the guiding principles, and openly talk about it. I remember having conversations with communities that rejected a permit for a mosque. Imagine in Jakarta, there's a community that say no to a masjid. Okay, you talk to them, discuss with them openly. But on the other hand, I'm also meeting the Muslim neighborhood who said no to permits for church. You talk to them, explain openly, explain the rules and regulations openly, hide nothing, and tell them why it is important to everyone to uphold the values that I have been echoing over and over again. The principle of equality, the principle of justice. When you talk about that principles, it's a lot easier for everyone. I ask these simple questions. Do you ever read on your WhatsApp group or your Facebook stories about our fellow Muslims in UK, in Germany, feeling grateful that they finally have masjid for them to pray? And for many, many years, we often heard difficulties of Muslims as minorities in other places to have place of worship, masjid. Imagine in Jakarta, there is that story spreading on the other side of the world that the Catholics or the Christian unable to build churches here in their land. We are happy when the Muslims get the masjid in Europe. We should be grateful to allow our fellow Christians and Catholic to have churches in this land as a spirit of justice and tolerance. But again, surah, the spirit of gotong royong. So we had that experience. Now, with regard to using bahasa as ASEAN language, we need to enrich our language to begin with. I don't know how many words in Malay today. How many words of Malay? The number of words in the Malay language. How many? Anyone? In Bahasa Indonesia, we have 150,000 words in Bahasa Indonesia. And I remember when I started my job as Minister of Education, at that time it was only around 90,000. So I told our team, we need to enrich our language because 90,000 is not enough. Do you know how many words in the language, in English language? 1 million. And 7,000 additional words every year. How many languages in Arabic? 12.7 million words. Okay? So when you talk about our language becoming a language of international community, you really need to do our homework, enrich our language. How do we enrich our language? Absorb local language across the archipelago. Across the archipelago. Because in many local languages, even the word falling, it can be 20 words of falling. If you fall to the front, that's a different word. If you fall to the back, that's a different word. If you fall because it's slippery, that's a different word. And if you fall because there is a hole, it's a different word. What I'm saying is that, you know, richness of language is important when you present it to the international community as an international language. So that is why it's important for us here in Indonesia and Malaysia to continue enriching our language so that we can stand up in the international community and presenting our language to the world. But if we haven't done our homework, wait a minute, okay? Hold on. So do our homework. Now, harmonizations of economy and ecology. This is something that we need to look at it beyond profit, but benefit. If you look at simply from the perspective of cost and benefit, then investing in environmental friendly approaches often being seen as expensive. That's why we need to view our expenses with regard to environment not as cost but as investment. If we see this as cost, then we try to minimize the cost at the expense of ecology. But if we look at it as investment, then we are talking about the benefit that we may be getting in the futures. And that's how we change the equation. So the triple P, which has been popular in the past decades, profit, people, planets, it's an equations that we need to put together and seeing this as creating benefits. Now, visions of Indonesia and Malaysia, these last questions with regard to the presidential election in Indonesia as well as here in Malaysia with Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, who is now the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Pak Anwar Ibrahim is an inspiration to so many of us. Needless to say, he is an inspiration. And for myself too. He was leaders of students, leaders of youth of Malaysia, and his stories were also all over Indonesia. So we follow through, and we're very proud of him and his leadership. And now Indonesia is undergoing a transformation in the past 25 years. We had reform in '98, and after 25 years of reform, we are seeing new generations coming up. And the way I look at this is this. This is two nations that has populations of Muslims in large numbers and practice democracy, and generally speaking, practice tolerance. And yet, this is also a region in which prosperity a presence. And I cannot think of other word except continuing the path of creating justice to all, so that this transformation continue. When we talk about Indonesia, for example, I think Malaysia the same thing. We and the rest of the world, modern world, we are seeing that the gap between modern industrialized nations with us is narrowing. The gap is narrowing. So cities like KL, Tokyo, London, Amsterdam, the difference was not as wide as it used to be in the 70s or 80s. Now the gap is narrowing. But on the other hand, the gap within countries are widening. So the gap between Jakarta and our remote area and our smaller cities are now widening. This is the challenge for future leadership. If we are able to address this issue and spread equal opportunity, I think the world can look at us here in Southeast Asia, and we will be able to go out there and say, this is two nations who have Muslim majority population, practicing democracy, delivering equality, common prosperity, something that the world should look at us as an example. This is not only regions that went through democratizations, but this is regions where democracy delivers. And we all know that we have been given the positions of Khalifah that create sort of equilibrium, the feeling of balances. And I think that is something that we'd like to share with the rest of the world. So pray for us that inshallah in our elections, that spirit can win the hearts and minds of the people of Indonesia. And if we are able to do that, inshallah, we'd like to see, if I may put it this way, that Indonesia officially and technically is not a Muslim state. It's not an Islamic state. It is not a secular state either. For the lack of better terms in political science, it is a Pancasila state, a non-religious base. However, it values, it respects, and it absorbs religious values. So on that sense, it is more on the maqasid principle of Sharia that is being practiced. If we are able to deliver the purpose, the ultimate purpose of Sharia, then it's not so much an Islamic state, or even we rarely talk about Muslim majority, because this is a country of all ethnics, of all groups, and diversity is part of us. And I think If we are able to deliver that, inshallah, we will send a very positive message across the globe, and to undo some of the framings or perceptions out there that in a Muslim majority nations, true democracy cannot prevail. Malaysia and Indonesia have, and also perhaps Turkey, have shown to the world that we are able to practice democracy. Democracy delivers, harmony is present. So that's a message for everyone. Terima kasih.